According to a Hamas official, a ceasefire and hostage release deal in Gaza is, quote, very close, but sticking points remain. Talks are ongoing in Qatar. President Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have been discussing the negotiations by phone. That happened on Sunday, their first publicly confirmed conversation since October. CNN's Jeremy Diamond live for us in Jerusalem this morning. Jeremy, what can you tell us about the state of these talks and why they seem to be accelerating here?
Well, Casey, it's clear that these parties are nearing the final stages of negotiations for a comprehensive ceasefire and hostage deal, but the question still remains as to whether or not they will get this deal across the finish line. A Hamas official telling us that several sticking points still remain in these talks, including over a proposed Israeli buffer zone inside the Gaza Strip where Israeli troops would remain, and details concerning the release of Palestinian prisoners, among several other sticking points as well. But over the weekend, we did see some really concrete movement in the right direction towards a deal. First of all, with the Israeli Prime Minister agreeing to dispatch the Mossad director, David Barnea, who has led the Israeli negotiating team at key junctures in these talks in the past. He was only supposed to travel to Doha, Qatar, if indeed there had been significant progress. So that was the first point. We also saw President-elect Trump's incoming special envoy for the Middle East meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister, conveying very clearly not only the Biden administration's pressure to get a deal before January 20th, but the incoming Trump administration's position agreeing with exactly that, trying to get a deal before President-elect Trump is indeed inaugurated 1 week from today. And now we are seeing all of these parties kind of rowing in the same direction, trying to get a deal in Doha, Qatar, but that doesn't mean that a deal is assured. All of the sources that I have been speaking to today have made clear that while things are very, very close here, they simply cannot guarantee an outcome at this point. And part of that stems from uncertainty over whether or not Hamas and Israel will have the political will to get a deal across the table. And of course, here in Israel, there is this question of politics still being at play. The Israeli Prime Minister over the weekend meeting last night, in fact, with Bezalel Smotrich, that far-right finance minister who in the past has threatened to pull the rug out from underneath this coalition government if indeed the Israeli Prime Minister reaches out and agrees to a deal. Today, in less than 24 hours after Smotrich met with Netanyahu, he took to Twitter to lambast this draft agreement that appears to be nearing potential conclusion, calling this deal on the table a, quote, catastrophe, describing it as a surrender deal, and urging the Israeli government to continue fighting in Gaza until Hamas fully surrenders to Israel. So a lot still at play here, Casey. Certainly some positive momentum, but uncertainty still remaining, as always. Casey.
And of course, looming over all of it, the inauguration of President-elect Donald Trump set for a week from today. Jeremy Diamond, thanks very much for that report.
President Biden will deliver what is expected to be his final foreign policy speech as president. A senior administration official says the president will argue he is giving President-elect Donald Trump a stronger hand than he inherited. With us now is Principal Deputy National Security Advisor Jon Finer. Jon, thanks so much for being with us. Before I get to the speech, I do want to ask you about the negotiations for a hostage and ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. There are officials with Hamas saying they're close. So what's the status this morning?
So while this has fallen out of the headlines a bit, the United States has remained deeply engaged in trying to seek a deal that would first and foremost bring the hostages home, but also halt the fighting, enable a massive influx of humanitarian assistance to Gaza. We have been focused on that deal for months, including day in, day out in recent weeks. There has been significant progress made. I am not going to sit here and make predictions. This has been a long time coming. We think a deal has been on the table that the parties should be able to agree to for quite some time. Hamas, up till now, has been resistant and reluctant to actually take that deal. Some of the gaps have narrowed, and we very much hope that this does come together, and we're going to stay on top of it. But I'm not going to sit here and predict exactly when it or where it'll come together.
No predictions, but are these talks in a different place today than they were a few days ago?
Fundamentally, we believe there is progress being made. There is a deal on the table that Hamas should accept that could do all the things I just laid out. Again, bring the hostages home, halt the fighting, increase humanitarian assistance, and that some of the outstanding issues that were present in recent weeks have been resolved or narrowed, and we will see what happens over the course of the coming days.
The flip side of that, CNN does have some reporting from someone familiar with these talks who says that the incentive for Israel right now, specifically Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, is Trump. Our reporting is that Netanyahu wants to get this done because of Trump, wants to curry favor with Donald Trump. How accurate is that assessment?
You know, to be honest, we're not focused on the politics of this. We are actually gratified by the fact that everybody who is speaking out on this topic is saying that they want a deal in the near term. Fundamentally, that's our position, and that's a good thing. We believe the sooner that this could happen, the better, first and foremost, because these hostages have been in a situation of just extreme peril now for well over a year. And it's overdue for them to come home and be reunited with their families. It is overdue for the fighting in Gaza to be halted, and the people there who are facing just an egregious humanitarian situation to get more relief. This has been our position for quite some time, and we are not focused on exactly who or why this may be coming together. We just want to make sure that it does come together if we can bring that about.
Talk to us about the speech today from President Biden. What is the chief message?
Well, I think you'll hear the president say that through the work of this administration, the United States is now stronger at home than we were when he took office, stronger economically, a stronger industrial base, a greater lead over the rest of the world in the development of the sensitive technologies that will define the future of the global economy and of our national security. And that's because of the investments the president and, frankly, the Congress made early in this administration to strengthen our hand. Second, he will say that we inherited, in addition to a flagging economy, relationships around the world that were in tatters, and that we went about not only repairing those relationships, but enhancing them to historic levels, particularly in strategically consequential parts of the world like the Indo-Pacific and like Europe. And so when these crises came that get all of the attention in foreign affairs, obviously the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which was unconscionable, the Hamas attack on Israel, which was outrageous, the United States was able, with our partners and allies, to address those crises from a position of much greater strength. And as a result, our adversaries in those crises, the Russians and the Iranians first and foremost, are on the back foot and weaker than they were when this president took office. The Chinese, who the United States has declared as our key strategic competitor. People were saying that they were ascendant when President Biden took office, that they would surpass the U.S. economically, that they would outpace us technologically. Nobody is saying those things with the same degree of confidence anymore, if they're saying them at all, in part because of the performance of this administration led by the president. And so we believe that he is leaving a very strong hand, as you say, to our successors, a strong hand in Europe, a strong hand in the Indo-Pacific, a strong hand in the Middle East, and it will be up to them to take that work forward.
One of the things you mentioned was NATO, a stronger NATO. What are you hearing from your counterparts in Europe about how they feel the U.S. commitment will be to NATO in the months ahead?
Well, I'll let them speak for their own predictions, their own relationships. But I think one of the things that is undeniable is that when this administration took office, if you had asked analysts, experts on NATO, if there is a major security crisis in Europe, how well is the alliance likely to hold together? Will it end up more divided or strengthened and unified as a result of that crisis? I think you would have had predictions all over the map. So the fact that when the crisis came, when Russia invaded Ukraine, in an unprecedented way, which, by the way, we predicted and went around the world saying was going to happen, when NATO emerged not only larger because of the addition of Finland and Sweden, which gives an extra 1,000 miles to NATO's border with Russia that Russia has to worry about, but also stronger, with many more countries, almost 3 times as many countries spending at least 2% of their GDP on defense, and also more unified. Despite this incredibly divisive action that Russia took. That came about because of hard work and, frankly, because of leadership by the president. So NATO is in a strong place. What the next administration does vis-a-vis its NATO policy, I'm not going to predict. How the other countries are viewing the incoming administration, best left to them. But the hand that is being dealt to the new administration puts them in a position to press the advantage should they choose to.
Jon Finer, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Best of luck.